Do you want to learn how to make these beautiful pendants made out of resin? Yes? Then stay tuned. Okay, first things first, I would like to point out that my work area never looks this neat. I just did it for the sake of you guys and your eyes. Just want to make sure everything looks nice and neat so you understand what's going on. All right, what would you need? First and foremost, you would need your resin. Usually, I don't know, it's just my opinion. If you have resin, usually comes in 2 parts and you mix them equal parts. I don't know about you guys, but all the resin I ever gotten that is good resin always comes in 2 parts, so you know that it's good. All right, let's set that aside. You would need a cup to mix that resin in. You would need your gloves before you start touching that resin. You need to make sure you have your gloves on. We have our little mixers here, so we're going to be using like toothpicks and things like that. Doesn't really matter. Anything that's like pointy where you can move things around inside the resin after you've poured it. I have these little pinchers too, because that kind of helps pick up anything, move something, and put it wherever you want to put it in there. We may need it, we may not. I think I have all the supplies I need. I put down some wax paper, taped it down a little bit, and I have a separate little thing where if I need to move it, I can move it. I had to cut in because what this is actually called is a doming mat. It's actually something that I bought at Bed Bath Beyond that you put in the bottom of the sink so that dishes aren't sitting on the bottom of your sink or something. But whatever it is that you use, it's got to be something that lifts your project up off the table and make sure that it dries flat and it doesn't stick to your table. Okay. If you're going to do this particular technique that I just showed you, you need to have a little base type of thing to put your resin in. And as you can see, it's open. It doesn't have anything on the back or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a back. So another supply that we do need that I forgot about is some, what do you call this? Packing tape. It doesn't have to be anything special. We're just using this as the back so that the resin doesn't come out. You need your tape. So I like to just put it on there on the sticky part. Like I might have some overlapping a little bit, which is fine. Okay, let's picture it. So I'm going to put all the backing on all these little components and we'll be right back. All right, so I have all of these stuck on the tape. Another thing to keep in mind, when you're doing these little component things, you would want to take them and after you make them, sit them down on a flat surface, and if you can see underneath it, that means that it's not level. So you're gonna have to bend it into shape in order to make sure that they, you might even need to take a hammer out and just make sure that they're flat when you sit them down, because otherwise when you stick the tape on the back, it's not gonna stick. So anyway, now that I got those situated, I would like to point out these little triangle little trays. These things are pretty darn cool. It's so cool when you're trying to, like, you have these little components and little things that, you know, you little beads you could put in there, but it's so easy. It just pours right into whatever container you want to put it in. So that's really cool. Inside of these little containers, I have glitter. Now, for people who do know me, they understand what I'm about to say. I do not like glitter. It's not a fact that I don't like glitter. It's the fact that I'm scared to death of glitter. That may sound strange. So, but it just freaks me out. So this isn't glitter that you can buy at the store. What I ended up doing was taking some sequins that I have, and I never got a chance to use them. I actually bought these in Dominican Republic. And so these are just simple little sequins, and I just took them and cut them up into small pieces, like in this video. I just took them and started cutting them into pieces. No exact shape or anything, but you know, that is what this is. So I made my own glitter, y'all. So that was a lot of fun. And the reason why I did that is so that if I do spill it, it's easy for me to get it up instead of glitter being, you know how microscopic glitter can get. That drives me bonkers, and that's part of the problem as to why I don't like glitter as much as the average person and the average crafter. So anyway, we're gonna get into mixing. I'm kind of nervous because I haven't done this in a while. I'm gonna set aside some things that are spill problems. So I like to set those aside, because I am not even gonna begin to tell you guys how many times I spilt those things just trying to do the tape situation. All right, first things first, remember what I said, put your gloves on. I don't know what it does to your skin, but I don't want to find out. Always have your gloves on. Be ready. And it's always important that you go like this to it. All right. All right. So what we're gonna do is we'll do equal parts. So I think for now, I'm gonna go and just do one capful. Okay, and you want to keep it as even as possible. Set that aside. Okay, and you want to keep it as even as possible. Set that aside. Another thing you guys are going to need is some paper towels. I have a lot of this resin when you're trying to do it. It doesn't clean up very easily with water. So what I like to do is take and wipe out these caps. And the reason why you want to do that is that so that when you're taking these caps and you're putting them right back on the bottles, they're not gonna be very clean, and it gets everywhere, and then that's aggravating trying to clean it up 6 months later after everything's said and done. Like, my gloves are like sticking together, and that's aggravating. So I know that if we don't clean off these caps, that they're gonna stick to the tops of these bottles, and then it won't come open, and then you'll be in trouble. So judging by how big these 3 components are, this little bit is not gonna be enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour another 1 cap of each one of them. Because these are sticky and are getting on my ever-loving nerves, I'm going to take them off, because I'm just going to use a stick to mix it. And the reason I use this comes from like a protein powder container, and I like to work with this instead of just using a cup, because you end up touching this without your gloves and you're going to get it on you. But I have a little handle on there on these, and I think this is best to have a little handle on it. So that I wouldn't run the risk of getting any on my hands. So at this point, you're gonna mix all those together. Enough. You can see it. They're kind of like, you can't really see it, but they're like, it's a little swirly. Excuse the powder from the gloves on my hands. It gets a little swirly. squirrely. Not squirrely, but swirly. And we want to try to blend it as much as possible. And you will start to see some bubbles appear in there. And those bubbles need to be popped or dispersed. So we're going to mix this up real quick. Okay, I moved you guys a little bit closer. You start to see a little bit of bubbles in there. So that's when you start to use your straw. You blowing the hot air onto this resin makes the bubbles pop. So I'm gonna blow a little bit on this to pop these bubbles, okay? And then we'll come back. So this is why I didn't freak out when I started getting the resin coming out from underneath, because this is about, I will say 15-20 hours later. And I was able, it's still kind of soft. I was able to cut it off around the edges of this. So it's still fairly soft, but it will get harder than that. So what I did was around the edges, I just basically took it and cut it, and just around the edges, and this is what came out. So even though it's about 10 hours later or 15 hours later, I didn't really time it, but it definitely wasn't 24 hours. And so it's still a little soft. So I'm going to lay it down for a little bit and let it cure a little bit longer. So there you go. Next, we're gonna, after we wait for it to dry a little bit longer, I'm gonna cut these, and then I'm going to start poking holes in them. So I'm gonna use a drill bit and poke a hole in them and start to make a necklace out of them. I think they turned out pretty nice. This one is a little bit on the thin side, I found. There's a bit of a divot there, and I think I might pour some more resin on that one. So I'm gonna set that aside. And I think with that, I could just sit it just fine, flat, with no tape underneath it. I don't think I need any of that. I'm just gonna go and just pour some on the top and dome it a little bit because it's just really flat. So anyway, but these other ones turned out very nicely. This one has a lot of bubbles in it. I'm not really a fan of There you go. Not really a fan of the bubbles, but you can see from the side too that you can actually still see the pieces of paper sticking up. So I might put a little bit more resin on this one too, but it's pretty darn cool. I love working with resin. But see, this gold one, all of them turned out very nicely, I think. Sorry, like I said before, I'm gonna poke some holes in them, but then I saw the other ones and I said, oh, why don't I cut those? I wanna see what they look like too. So let's poke some holes in them. You know me, I'm gonna do more than poke holes in things. But anyway, here are the pendants. I hope you like them. Please drop me a like, subscribe, sign up for notifications. And as always, thank you for watching.